Right.
Okay, it's 6 p.m. So welcome to the Town of Tallulah Falls Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing and regular scheduled meeting, August 14th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would someone like to make the motion to adopt the agenda as written? All in favor? All right, third item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on June the 12th, 2024. Any changes or approval? You want that?
I wasn't here, so.
Oh, okay. All right, Mary. Kristen,
I'll second.
all in favor? So we will open up this public hearing for the zoning text amendment of the tree preservation. There's no one here, so the introduction proposed to legislation is the purpose of these standards is to facilitate in the preservation and the replacement of trees as part of the land development, building construction process within the city. Benefit derives from tree protection and replanting. I know that Linda had a copy of this, and when she sent it out, it was available for view, or someone could pick it up. Nobody on there, is there?
No,
Okay,
Is it on there?
Linda is, but she's the only participant.
okay, so,
Hey, Christy. Brian Irvin just texted me and I told him that the link is the same as the one that's usually done for the city council meetings. So y'all may want to give him just a few minutes and give him a chance because I guess it wasn't included on the email.
Okay.
does anyone at the table have any comments?
There he is. Okay, it looks like it's connected.
Okay, welcome, Brian. We are in a public hearing concerning the tree preservation, and we're to the point where we're wanting any comments in favor of what is written to be proposed to legislation. Does anyone at the table have any comments? And oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. I don't have any comments.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, anyone at the table? No,
In favor?
yes,
I'm in favor of the ordinances written, except for I think the only thing lacking is I think it's really weak on penalties. As far as, so it's, I'm in favor, then I'm opposed to certain things. I don't think it has really much enforcement teeth other than people, like, I think someone could come in if and take out a lot of trees and say, sure, I'll plant back stuff. And I think that on a gross violation of the tree ordinance, I think there should be some sort of penalty. And I mean, I know in the mountain district portion, it does say it's a misdemeanor, but that's only thing's above 2,000 feet. So I think everything else is kind of, someone could come in and take out all the trees they want and say, sure, I'll plant stuff back. And we kind of lost a lot of older trees that way. So I think it's great to have a tree ordinance, but I think a tree ordinance should have a little bit more of a penalty other than just replanting a tree. I'm monetary amount. So that's really about it.
we'll put that in as a comment for the opposed. Is that okay?
Yeah,
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 that's-
it's going
that's-
on both sides. I think it's good, but I
Yeah.
think it might need to be a little stronger in some areas, so.
Okay. Anyone else opposing this legislation? Okay, with that being said, then we will close the public hearing on the tree preservation. And then we will go into our next public hearing, which is home occupation in R1 and agriculture. We can end, was that a text message for us?
No.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure we didn't close that too quick. So the next one is home occupations in an R1 and agricultural. This ordinance is to amend Part 2, Code of the Ordinance, Appendix Zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Tallulah Falls to revise the requirements for home occupation for the following zoning districts. And there is a few pages here. Again, Linda sent this out. We sent the information that if anyone wanted to take a look at it prior to the public hearing. I know it's been quite some time since we've looked at this. But
Sissy,
I think, yes,
hey, it's Linda. I've got just one comment. I know you all had talked about it. It also being a part of R2, and the attorney's comment on that is, and y'all may have already seen it by email, was that everything in R1 is allowed in R2. So it's covered by way of everything that's permitted as a permitted use in R1 is also permitted in R2.
okay, thank you for that clarification.
In the code, it says that.
Okay. Comments in favor of this revised ordinance? Okay, is there any comments on this ordinance that oppose the home occupation? Anyone on the table would like to speak? Okay. Anyone online would like to speak on this, being opposed to this ordinance? Okay, so we'll close this public hearing. Okay, there is no old business, so we will go right into our regular council meeting, or sorry, I was at a council meeting last night, regular P and Z meeting. So new business is deliberation on recommendation to the council for the zoning text amendment of the tree preservation, R1, which will also include R2, and agriculture. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. That's two different things. Tree preservation first. Let's talk about the recommendations for the zoning of the tree preservation. And we would make a vote on this if this is how it's going to be written to send to the city council, correct?
I'm not sure.
I think so. I mean, if we're not making any changes, we would make a vote on a recommendation to the city council.
And
Right, this is our last chance to make revisions on the tree, right? So on the tree preservation, it's been brought to attention that we're a Firewise community. And going forward, I mean, I would think that maybe we might want to just add a line going forward that if any of the ordinance comes into strong conflict with Firewise recommendations, that it should be readdressed before enforcement. I don't know how we would word that, but here's the thing. Firewise recommendations change yearly. And when you put an ordinance down on paper, it's kind of rigid.
Can't have that variability.
So forward thinking, I would just, maybe we should put something in there just generally that would be able to reevaluate all of the little line item ordinances on the tree preservation so that there isn't a conflict. I don't think there's one now. We've
Mhm.
all checked it out. But I don't know if Firewise might change in 5 years.
Mhm.
And if Firewise recommendations come up with something that works better to firefighters fighting fires, they say, hey, maybe try this. And we have an ordinance that maybe conflicts with that. Maybe, we should be able to
We would be able to make an amendment to an ordinance after it's passed by the council, correct? Make a recommendation for an amendment.
Yes.
Linda?
Yes, the council could amend it later.
All right, so that is a good point to have in the minutes as far as the fire was.
Okay.
Okay, with that line being added or those comments being made, would someone like to make a motion to send this recommendation to the,
How do y'all wanna work that?
I would. In the event there's a conflict with the Firewise,
Best practices?
yes,
Mm.
yes, that we would have the ability to make amendments. Recommendation of an amendment to the city council, because I know everything has to go through them and the final word, but
And the attorney still has to put these regulations into an ordinance form, so we could give him, that language and see how he could, work it into an ordinance, because right now it's not, in the legal ordinance form yet, so.
okay.
There's one other little thing also on, section 5, procedure for issuance of a tree cutting permit, A1. And then go all the way to, I go all the way to E. Now on D, it states the police chief or other designated city official shall within 10 working days of the filing of the application visit the property, confirm that the application is complete, and make a written recommendation to the zoning administrator that the permit be issued or denied. And then on E, it says the zoning administrator shall within 5 days of receipt of the recommendation of the police chief, and it probably should have said or other designated official. It's just, they don't,
Okay, yeah.
it's just a technicality of if there's a person who's gonna, step in and go view these things.
That's probably where the legal department's gonna step in and try to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean,
Yeah.
clarify
Lawyer.
that. And that's,
Um,
they're probably
Good
gonna
eye,
have quite
good
a
eye.
few more of those things.
and then, I'll bring it one more time, there's the whole idea, the only penalty is buying a tree. So if you violate it, or if you cut down, 25 or 50% of your trees, there's no teeth to this. And I'm just, like an individual like me, it might hurt, but if someone was gonna come and develop something. They could cut down a lot of trees and say, oops, and we'll plant some back, and deeper pockets can do more things, but if there's. There's stronger penalties, then you probably have a stronger tree ordinance. But I think industry ordinance is better than no tree ordinance, so.
Well, honestly, I get the feeling like we're looking more at monetary. But I think there's things that are better than that. In other words, if what you're saying, like a developer comes in to develop property and he disregards the tree ordinance and clear cuts,
Yeah.
you can hold up the process of his building. So I think rather than monetary, you
Denial.
can say, okay, well, now you have to stop and then we'll reevaluate. So
Even
in other
with
words,
Building permits.
yeah, I don't know what the legalities of that are. I'm sure
Yeah.
there is some,
Yeah.
because but rather than trying to put monetary values on things, maybe you could slow up a process and make them think about what they're doing. That's probably in the back of their mind, gonna keep them from doing things like that because you're slowing their process.
Yeah, but so they have a longer waiting period and just. You look anywhere where developments come in and it tends to, the developers win.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm trying to tell you is if you have a multimillionaire coming in to develop property
Yeah,
and you throw out a $10,000 fine to him,
yeah,
he's not gonna care.
yeah,
He's gonna pay the fine.
yeah,
But if you tell him that you gotta stop your process of building buildings
yeah,
until we reevaluate what you've done,
yeah,
well, that's gonna get probably a little more activity than if you just throw monetary values out there. That,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is,
do
and what
both.
that does is that hurts the person like you and me
Yeah.
that can't afford that.
Right,
It
right,
keeps honest people honest, and
Yeah.
rather than, I just, the point I'm trying to make is not everything can be solved by a monetary value.
no, well, then
Yeah.
maybe, something else in there that's like a denial or a restriction for building permits of a 5-year period or something. Like that, if there's just a gross violation where it's someone comes in, just thoughts. And I was kind of late in the game, but I mentioned this before about monetary and I just I come back to it when I see that. I've known people who violated tree ordinances and knowing full well they're gonna get the penalties and have to plant trees and they're like, fine, I can do it. So people are gonna violate it.
Well, this is true, and
Yeah.
there's only so much you can do
Yeah.
without people being dishonest. I mean,
Yeah. Or just being negligent of or not negligent, but being disregarding, what the ordinance is, so.
you gotta try to, what we wanna do here is we wanna try to get people into the mindset of preserving trees.
Yeah, I'm well.
Not trying to stand in between them and cutting a tree. We don't wanna be labeled as
Yeah.
environmentalists or, you know what I mean?
Well, there's
Yeah, it
nothing
just-
wrong with liking, taking care of the environment.
right,
Or
but
tree
we
hugger,
wanna be
whatever.
careful, we wanna be careful with that line. Because it's a stigma, and I'd rather get people on the side of. Conservation of the trees. Through their own mindset, rather than us. Making it's a hard process to try to educate. But here's my theory. I think people should be able to do pretty much what they want. With their own properties.
Yeah,
And with things in general, as long as everyone could do it.
yeah,
And if everyone clear cut their property, what would that look like?
Nevada.
So that's the kind of education that we need to put forth to everyone. Look, the reason why we want you to keep some of your trees on your property. Is because we don't want everyone to get rid of all of their trees. So if everybody built a house and clear cut their backyard for their view, what would that look like? It would look like Gatlinburg. If that's what we wanna look at,
Oh,
that's fine, you can have that. But I don't think that has a place here in Tallulah Falls. And it's not just for one area, it's pretty much the whole area. Let's think about it in the United States, we really need to start preserving all of the trees that we have. All the forests that we have,
It's better for a lot of things.
just
yes.
making people think twice before they cut a tree down.
Yeah,
There's lots of reasons why people have to cut trees down. I'd like to have a lawn around my house.
yeah,
I can't do that until I trim some of my trees.
yeah,
That doesn't mean I have to cut them all down,
yeah.
but I have to allow some sunlight to get to my yard so that I can grow lawn.
You have to cut
So
grass.
it's a happy medium.
Mhm.
But we need to think about it. That's all I'm saying is rather than hitting people hard. The education's a big thing, reasoning,
Mhm.
try to lead people. Have the best side of somebody rather than thinking the worst of them. I know sometimes you have to, but.
Yeah. I think, but having certain rules in place, speed limits aren't suggestions and no parking signs. well,
Sometimes they are.
Yeah,
They're
sometimes
written
they
on
are.
a yellow sign. That's a
Sometimes they
suggestion.
are, very much so, so, yeah, like I say, I think a tree ordinance is good to have in place. I think having, penalty for, I guess, gross violations, not saying someone cuts a tree down, because there's already a space in here. If the council sees that they would approve the tree being taken down anyway, in hindsight, then there'll be no violation of the tree ordinance, so we have exceptions already. And I support this either way, but. Just my feelings for. If everything's a suggestion, people can do what they wanna do.
Do you want to add that recommendation to the motion? Even though it's not written, maybe the city council will take it into consideration.
I think it's something they should consider, depending on how serious they are about a tree ordinance, because it is their final decision, we're just the recommendation, right, and putting it together for them.
Is that something we would need to vote on, that we put that recommendation
I
for?
would
Because
think
I don't
so.
agree with that, but,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, if y'all agree with it, that's fine, but I
I don't
don't.
know, I see both sides of it,
Yeah, I mean, I see,
only because if you look at it from a standpoint of me doing it in my yard, you're not gonna hurt me by holding a building permit, I'm not building.
Yeah,
right,
But if you're talking about a development coming in and they just clear cut it out, a whole bunch of land at one
50
time,
acres.
money is. Time is money, and when you're waiting on contractors to do X, Y, Z, and you can't do it because you couldn't get your building permit, they've moved on to another thing, and you're costing them money, a lot more than a fee.
So. once
Maybe
again,
it's considered to be commercial or high development or what's the word I'm looking for
I mean, it's
yeah.
both
it's kind
sides,
Yeah, I think the council will
depending on your
decide, but I think
situation,
the
the fee
council
could be
should,
strong either way.
but our recommendation is a recommendation, well, they might pick this up anyway, but then they might say, no, let's just leave it and have a good old, kind of a, like, a weaker tree ordinance, but I think on large scale, like, we could find a way of wording it, things over X number of acres, or for new construction developments or whatever. A way of wording that so that it doesn't affect you or me as an individual, but where it would be someone with deep pockets and a gross violation, just kind of a slap in the face to the town. I think that something like holding up, not monetary, it would be a punitive of no building permit for, X number of years or something like that. And so once again, I think you're saying that not doing a monetary would, so.
yeah, I don't know if you would hold permits up for years, but I mean, Yeah,
Reassess your
that's
plan, tell
that's
us what trees
excessive.
You're putting it in.
Exactly,
fix
I mean,
your
it
problem
would
that
be
you
a,
just had.
yeah, it would be a halt of that process going forward for 90 days or whatever, or 6 months or whatever for reevaluation.
Cause
I mean,
that's,
if
I mean,
you,
that's a lot more than hitting me with a $10,000 fine,
Yeah,
when you're holding up a builder that's coming in with a development,
Mhm.
that's a lot.
6 months is very expensive.
you look at,
Time is-
It's very expensive, but
you
I mean,
start
I'm
messing
just,
up that
I'm just
schedule,
telling you
it's a lot
from
of-
experience.
then if you look at the nature of development, it tends to be clear cut and plant twigs back, on big development.
And well, and your interest rates,
Look in Clayton, outside of Clayton, what they did with that. All those little boxes are all the same, they cut, I forget who's laying that farm, they cut. You can see it from Main Street there, and they just scraped everything and put all this, like, 100 units of the same thing in there. Have you seen this?
it
Yeah.
was on for it,
Yeah, it's, I'm
it's better
saying,
than
but no tree
90
ordinance,
trailers.
yeah.
Well, that's why I say, I mean, I
And they
think
call it
putting
affordable
a
housing,
tree
it's not
ordinance
affordable housing.
forward is
Yeah.
more important than making it perfect. This isn't gonna be absolutely perfect. It's gonna have to be amended and added to. if we see a problem going forward, I mean, I'm sure we could recommend that they add something to it.
Yeah, but once, if it's not in place, then something comes in, you can't do it in hindsight, so.
So you were under the assumption that there's a builder out there going,
I'm not assuming anything. I have eyes. I see the developments happening in this county. I see the developments happening south of here, north of here.
we just don't wanna discourage it though.
Do we not?
Because if we discourage development, it's like telling your kid when they're 14 that they can't go out.
How about
And then when they're
encouraging?
18, they just disappear on you.
How about encouraging good development?
Well, that's what we're trying to do with
Yeah.
the tree ordinance.
Yeah,
But there's a happy line, you
yeah,
know, between discouraging people, cause quite frankly, when builders look at places like this to build, whether it's one home or 10, they look at ordinances. When people buy and sell houses,
well,
they
we talk-
look at tree ordinances to see, you know, if somebody's gonna come in here to buy property. This tree ordinance that we're putting forward is something that they're paying attention to.
Oh, yeah, some.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think the
So
ones
we
that are
we don't
really
wanna,
into it have their own people that come out and survey their land that they're looking at, and everything. They'll go ahead and say, okay, we bought this 5 acre tract, here's how we're gonna split it.
Yeah.
This is where your flood zones are, this is, I mean, they lay it out, the topography and everything for your
yes,
plat when,
site plans. Yeah.
right, when you file it. And I think that people that come in there like that are going to be more like what you're talking about. They already have it together, this is the business they're in.
Yeah,
So when you hit them with stop your
Yeah.
work, you're hitting them
Right.
where it hurts.
so make a motion to add verbiage into which addresses development, new development and gross violations of the tree ordinance that will halt building permits for X number of days.
well, I mean, we're talking about clear cutting. So,
Or removal of over 25% of the
Well-
trees, or just not, or just disregarding the tree ordinance. I think either one really is like. I mean, it allows room, but if we say we don't want to be a Gatlinburg, then we have to have something that prevents. Everything from being removed. What Gatlinburg had a horrible fire too, so they were probably not a fire watch town. Yeah, so anyway, like I say, I think a tree ordinance is good. I think, you know, something like this would be nice to, just as a protection from. New development and gross violations of it,
Have a stop work order until
Yes,
remedied.
until we come back with a plan on what we're fixing, how, and approved.
right,
yeah, okay, yeah, you just toss it back and you get, it can be all negotiated out, but I think something should be there to. I mean, some people got a lot of money, you know, they can just do whatever they want.
did you hear what we were talking about before? Okay, this is about development coming in and clear cutting. The discussion was a massive amount of trees in violation of the ordinances that we're putting forward. So if a developer came in and had 10 acres and just decided that it was worth breaking the ordinance and clear cutting the land, they're not gonna really be deterred
Or
by the
violating our
ordinance.
tree ordinance. period.
So what we're trying to say is that at that point, if you're a developer and you're developing on that, that you would have a stop work order at that point going forward, so that the damage could be evaluated and
And the
reassessed.
resolution be put forth as to a reparation
And
for
so
that.
the option is a stop local.
Hmm?
That's the only option I see is a stop local.
Yeah, or, temporary denial of permit, stop work order, a revocation of building permit, they have to reapply, and there's a lot of things you can do, but, we're talking about, you know, monetary and how some people could just, like, in monetary things, some people could, just fine, I'll pay it, you know, and take all the trees down and, you know, totally change the topography of the land and I just see stuff done, like, there's a a storage unit place. This is on Browns Ridge Road, going over towards my mom's house. And they came in and they excavated, this is all this land, and I said, what is this gonna be? What is this gonna be? I spent so much money putting a drainage in, and it turns out it's a storage unit thing. I'm like, how can they spend so much money? And just, ripped every tree down, they recontoured the land, and it just turns out to be, I thought it was gonna be a neighborhood, it's just storage units. I'm just like, wow, I wouldn't have ever thought that, and I wouldn't have probably spent my money that way, I would find a flat piece of land or something, put my storage units on, but. I get my mind blown regularly when I look at the way things are done, so.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to add this verbiage under the penalty section. For new development, gross violations to have the halt work order, for a period of up to not 60 days.
6 months, 90
6
days.
months.
Yeah, 90 days is gonna be plenty. You're gonna have lawyers. I mean, do you really wanna get the town of Tallulah Falls sued by a multi-millionaire?
No,
It's gonna
no.
be just like,
No, that's
So what
plenty of
is-
time to get back with it.
exactly.
With pricing and
Okay.
everything else, I would think.
What about a
Um,
I
requirement?
think it'd be,
What's
What
that?
about a requirement to submit a landscaping plan for approval by the city council?
Right, that's in our ordinances, is it
That's,
not?
that, I think that's, but I think that should be part of it, yes, part of the,
I thought that was already in here.
it was, I think, for commercial maybe,
Yeah,
up to 90 days, and then to submit a landscaping,
Right,
ordinance for approval,
right.
a landscaping what?
ordinance, or a landscaping, plan.
Blueprint,
Thank
yeah.
you, my mind is just like.
Yeah, I'm still on the ordinance. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Anyone wants to second it?
All right, who made the motion?
David,
I'll second it.
Christie, all in favor?
Did we do a motion, did we do who did the motion for the one for, and the other one? Didn't run down
No, okay,
yeah.
as far as Adeline Torch,
about
the
fire.
Firewise, okay, so we're gonna add that one too. Harry, you wanna make that motion?
Yeah.
Okay, Harry. Someone want to second that? Christie, all in favor? Okay, and for you, Harry, that's just to, add some language in there to for the Firewise, as it changes, that we could come back and make amendments or make recommendations for amendments for the city council.
if Firewise changes,
Yeah.
just to make, make the ordinance fluid, so we'll be. Firewise changes, we have a meeting and we would restructure things to kind of fit with the Firewise changes.
If it conflicts.
If it conflicts, yeah.
Okay, so, the next item on the agenda is the, deliberation on recommendations to cancel for zoning text amendment for home occupation in R1, and as Linda said, R2 and agriculture. And again, this is just recommendations to the city council.
And so since R1 has to be the same as R2, or R2 has to be the same as R1, that means we're saying no to home daycares.
And
and
R2.
kennels.
Yeah. I don't
You would
know
have to
why-
look at what, there may be some things permitted in R2 already that are not in R1, but everything in R1 is allowed in R2. If that makes sense.
Okay. It does, and everything that's in R1 is also allowed in agricultural.
What would it hurt just to include R2 in this language? In case there was some hair splitting thing. I don't understand, I mean, if everything's in R1 is permitted in R2.
Yeah,
but why-
because R1 is more regulated than R2.
Yeah,
So that makes sense to me. I mean, it just,
So we want to add,
you can add in.
Oh,
Yeah,
don't add
and
any.
just leave it.
Yeah, I think we just leave
There's
it
nothing
where it
else.
is. There-
And nothing else in R two just doesn't have, it doesn't, if there was some issue, then R two would be just left out, so, which is no big deal either.
Okay, someone want to make that motion to accept as is, as a recommendation to the city council? Harry? Second,
Second.
David, all in favor? Okay, so now we're gonna open the floor up. The next, I will open up the floor for discussion, but the next public hearing for these matters will be held before the city council on October 17th at 6 p.m. You got any comments, ma'am?
October, not September, October.
October 17th.
Ooh,
They'll have a public hearing then.
why is this being, Linda, why is this being put off until October, any reason?
Well, planning and zoning has 30 days to make their recommendation to the city council in writing, so that was giving you all time to get the written recommendation to me. Which can be the minutes or resolution, but I would need the written recommendation.
Which is
We
what
still
we're,
have to send this to the attorney for the legalities of it. So-
Yeah, and the attorney will have to work on he's already done the home occupation one, but he'll have to work on the tree.
and council had their meeting last week, so they were a week ahead of us on this one.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, okay.
And while we're talking about this, I won't be available for next month's meeting.
September, or, okay,
I'll be out. I'll probably send a memo out on email, but I'll have everybody's attention. Honestly, I'll just say it.
okay, any more discussion?
Ma'am?
Anyone online have any comments? Okay, someone want to make a motion to adjourn? Harry, second,
I'll say,
David?
yeah.
All in favor? Motion adjourned.
Thanks for all y'all working on this.
All right, I'm gonna figure out this real quick. And that's all.
So October, there'll be a hearing of the council.
Mhm.
A public hearing will be set.
It's not recorded.
As-
So they probably won't vote on it.
Yeah, we had a public hearing too, but